Today we're going to explore a topic that mixes everyday life with horror. 7 scary stories involving delivery men and sinister deliveries. Get ready to hear stories of people who got much more than they expected when they opened the door, facing situations of suspense, surveillance, and disturbing encounters with mysterious delivery men. We're going to dive into stories based on real events, where danger knocks on the door in unexpected ways and fear hides in the details of everyday life. So, get comfortable, check if the door is properly locked, and let's start this chilling journey. And before the doorbell rings, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave your like. This helps the channel a lot and ensures that you don't miss any scary content like this. Let's go. The Night Delivery Man. The routine of the apartment building on Eimsbüttel Street in Hamburg was marked by the silence of the early hours of the morning. The residents, mostly young professionals and students, were accustomed to the coming and going of delivery men during the day, but it was at the beginning of that winter that something strange began to happen. Anonymous packages began to be delivered between 2 and 3 in the morning. The first to notice was Daniel Kruger, a 28-year-old graphic designer who worked from home. One night, he woke up to the sound of the intercom. When he answered, he heard only a muffled voice. "Delivery to apartment 302. Daniel thought it was strange, since he hadn't ordered anything, but he went down to receive it anyway. He found a small box at the front door with no sender's name on it, just his name written by hand. The delivery man, wearing a dark coat and cap, avoided eye contact and quickly disappeared into the empty street. In the following days, other residents reported similar situations. Unmarked boxes, always delivered by the same man, who seemed to carefully inspect the apartments before leaving. Some began to suspect that the boxes were empty or contained only trivial objects. A keychain, a notepad, a cheap pen. Anna Meyer, a medical student, noticed that the delivery man would always stop for a few minutes in front of the building, looking up, as if studying the windows. One night, when she discreetly peeked through the curtains, she saw the man taking pictures of the floors with his cell phone before ringing the intercom. His disturbing behavior prompted Anna to alert the building's WhatsApp group of residents. "Don't open your door to deliveries you didn't order," he wrote. "This guy has been hanging around the building for 3 nights in a row." Tensions rose when the doorman, Herr Schultz, reported that the delivery man had tried to gain access to the building, claiming he needed a signature for a special delivery. The doorman refused, but noted that the man had been hovering around the entrance for nearly half an hour, observing the movements of those coming and going. The following week, the disappearance of a 5th-floor resident, Clara Vogel, sent panic through the building. Clara kept to herself, worked at a publishing house, and rarely went out at night. Her last recorded activity was a message to a friend. "I got a strange delivery. I'm going down to see what it is." After that, she vanished without a trace. The police were called, but initial investigations were unsuccessful. There were no signs of a break-in, and the building's security cameras were down for maintenance that night. The night delivery man became the prime suspect, but no one knew his name or company. Daniel, restless, decided to investigate on his own. He discreetly installed a camera in his window to record the street during the early hours of the morning. Within a few days, he captured images of the delivery man, always wearing the same coat, with a cap pulled down over his eyes, walking slowly and looking at the windows before ringing the intercom. In one of the recordings, Daniel noticed that the man wrote something down in a notebook after each delivery. Determined to understand the pattern, Anna analyzed the delivery history. She discovered that all the recipients had received boxes in the days leading up to Clara's disappearance. More alarmingly, in another building in the neighborhood, a young man had disappeared weeks earlier, also after receiving an anonymous delivery in the early hours of the morning. With the evidence gathered, Daniel and Anna went to the police. who finally intensified the search. A night patrol caught the delivery man prowling another nearby building. When approached, he tried to flee, but was detained. In his car, the police found a list with names and addresses of residents of several buildings, as well as hundreds of photos of windows and doors. The investigation revealed that the man, Eric Baumann, was a former employee of a delivery company who had been fired for inappropriate behavior. Obsessed with surveillance, he used fake deliveries to study routines, identify vulnerable residents, and select victims for kidnapping. In his apartment, police found personal items belonging to Clara and 2 other missing victims, as well as detailed records of the schedules, habits, and vulnerabilities of dozens of people. The case shocked Hamburg and gained national attention. The police managed to locate Clara and another victim in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, both in a state of shock, but alive. Eric confessed that he liked to play on people's fears, using the anonymity of deliveries, to infiltrate the lives of residents without arousing suspicion. After the arrest, the building beefed up security, installing cameras and banning deliveries outside of business hours. Daniel and Anna became vocal advocates for security awareness campaigns in condominiums and deliveries, warning of the dangers of accepting unsolicited packages. The case of the night delivery man has become a reference in debates about urban privacy and everyday vulnerability. For residents of large cities, it has become a warning. Danger can hide under the most banal disguise, that of someone knocking on your door with a package, but with much darker intentions than a simple delivery receipt. The box with no. Sender Marta Rossi, 32, a recently divorced journalist, lived alone in a discreet apartment in the Porta Romana neighborhood of Milan. It was a grey Thursday when, upon arriving home from work, she found a cardboard box on the doormat. There was no sender, shipping label, or any other identification, just her name, handwritten in small, precise letters. Marta found it strange, but curiosity got the better of her. She opened the box and found only a new blue pen and a blank note. With no clues, she dismissed the episode as a mistake or a joke. Over the next few days, however, the feeling of unease grew. As she left for work, she noticed a white van parked on the corner, its engine running, and a man in a dark jacket in the driver's seat. On the way back, the same van seemed to follow her at a distance, stopping whenever she stopped, speeding up when she sped up. At first, Marta thought it was paranoia, but the routine repeated itself for 3 days. On Monday, as she was leaving the building, the delivery man in the van, a thin man with a thin beard and deep-set eyes, waved at her, smiling strangely. "Good morning, Signora Rossi. Beautiful weather to walk to the subway, isn't it?" Marta froze. She had never told anyone the exact route she took every day. From that moment on, everything changed. The man started showing up at different points in the neighborhood, in the bakery line, across the street when she went for a run, even near the supermarket where she did her weekly shopping. Always wearing the same jacket, always watching. One night when she got home, she found another box on the doormat. This time, inside, there was just a sheet of paper with a drawing of a door, drawn in blue pen, the same one she had received before. Desperate, Marta looked for the building's administrator, but no one had seen any delivery person. The security cameras had been turned off for maintenance for weeks. She tried to report the incident to the police, but without any explicit threats or concrete evidence, she only received generic recommendations for caution. Tensions mounted when Marta realized that the delivery man knew intimate details of her routine. One morning, he approached her as she was leaving the subway. "You forgot to buy milk yesterday, didn't you? I can bring it to you tomorrow." Marta ran, feeling the panic rising. Determined to understand what was happening, she began researching similar stories on online forums. She discovered dozens of cases of women who had received unmarked boxes and days later were followed by unknown delivery men. In many reports, the victims reported missing personal items, a feeling of being invaded, and in some cases, disappearances that were never solved. Marta decided to take action. She discreetly installed a camera in the hallway of the building. The following night, she captured images of the man in the van placing a box at the door of another apartment in the building. He always delivered the boxes late at night, wearing gloves and a low-cut cap, avoiding the few street cameras. With the images, he returned to the police, who began a more serious investigation. They discovered that the man, Carlo Bianchi, was a former employee of a delivery company, fired for inappropriate behavior. Since then, he had been using his knowledge of routes and schedules to map the routines of women who lived alone, selecting targets for invasion, extortion, and, in at least 2 cases, kidnapping. In Carlo's apartment, police found dozens of identical boxes, lists of names and addresses, and personal items belonging to several victims. He kept a detailed observation diary, detailing the schedules, habits, and vulnerabilities of each woman. The boxes were the first contact, a test to gauge the victims' reactions and confirm whether they were alone and vulnerable. The investigation revealed that Carlo had been operating for over a year, always in residential neighborhoods in Milan and Turin. In many cases, the boxes were just the beginning of a cycle of surveillance, manipulation, and psychological terror. When the victim showed fear or changed their routine, he would intensify the stalking. When they ignored him, he would move on to the next one. Marta, shaken, moved to another neighborhood and spent months in therapy. The case gained national attention, leading delivery companies to review safety protocols and the police to create guidance campaigns for women living alone. The unsent box case has become a symbol of the hidden dangers of urban routine and of vulnerability to predators, who use the anonymity of deliveries to study, choose, and manipulate their victims. For residents of large cities, the warning is, never underestimate a seemingly banal gesture. The danger may begin with a simple box left on the doorstep, but the outcome can be much darker than one might imagine. The wrong order Javier Torres, 27, lived alone in a small apartment in the Lavapiés neighborhood of Madrid. It was a rainy Friday when, tired after a day of remote work, he decided to order food through an app. He chose his favorite restaurant, confirmed the order, and waited anxiously. When the intercom rang, he went downstairs to collect the bag, but realized that the contents did not match what he had ordered. Instead of tacos, there was a cold hamburger and an unmarked package. The delivery man, a tall man with a thin beard and an uneasy look, insisted on going up to the apartment and resolving the problem personally. Javier refused, saying he would resolve it through the app. The delivery man insisted, claiming that he needed to check the order and that it could be dangerous to leave the wrong food with the customer. The tone of the conversation changed from cordial to invasive. Feeling uncomfortable, Javier closed the door and quickly went upstairs. That night, Javier tried to contact the app's support but received no response. When he reported the incident in the building's messaging group, he discovered that other residents had experienced similar situations. Wrong deliveries, insistence on entering the apartments, and in one case, a neighbor reported waking up in the middle of the night to soft knocks on the door, as if someone was trying to enter without being noticed. On Saturday, Javier found the same delivery man standing on the corner of the building, apparently waiting for someone. The man greeted him, asking if he liked the burger. Javier responded coldly and quickly entered the building. In the elevator, he met Marta, a neighbor on the 8th floor, who commented, "That strange delivery man tried to come in here yesterday. He said he needed to use the bathroom." The atmosphere of suspicion grew. Javier began to notice details. The delivery man seemed to be closely observing the movements of the residents, writing things down in a notebook, and he always walked around the neighborhood, even when there were no apparent deliveries. On Sunday, Javier noticed unusual activity in the building. Marta had not been seen since the previous night. Her apartment was quiet and the door was ajar. Concerned, Javier called other neighbors. When they entered, they found signs of a struggle, a fallen chair, objects scattered around, and Marta's cell phone thrown in the hallway. The police were called immediately. The investigation revealed that over the past 2 months, several residents of buildings in the area had reported erroneous deliveries, followed by invasive approaches. The delivery man, identified as Diego Ramirez, used false documents to work on different apps. He selected victims who lived alone, preferably women or young people with little support network, and insisted on entering the apartments under trivial pretexts. The police cross-referenced GPS records from the apps and security cameras. Images showed Diego patrolling buildings even without scheduled deliveries, observing routines and schedules. In at least 3 cases, residents disappeared after similar incidents. In Diego's apartment, belongings belonging to Marta and other victims were found, as well as detailed notes about the schedules, habits, and vulnerabilities of the residents. Javier, shaken, realized he had narrowly escaped. The case gained national attention, leading delivery apps to reinforce security protocols, require biometric identification of delivery drivers, and prohibit non-standard delivery approaches. The police launched awareness campaigns to warn residents never to allow delivery drivers into their homes, even in the event of mistakes or swaps. Fear spread throughout the neighborhood. Neighbors became suspicious of any unusual deliveries. Javier, who had previously been carefree, began locking double doors, installing cameras, and avoiding contact with strangers. The building invested in increased security, a 24-hour doorman, a registry of delivery people, and constant monitoring. Still, the trauma persisted. Marta's disappearance made headlines, and other similar cases came to light, revealing that Diego was part of a larger network of criminals who used apps to map vulnerable victims in large cities. Every week, new victims emerged, describing the same pattern: incorrect orders, insistence on coming in, disappearances. The police intensified their investigations, discovering that Diego and his accomplices were exchanging information on underground forums, sharing customer data, schedules, and profiles of potential targets. The case exposed serious flaws in the verification systems of the delivery platforms, which promised changes, but fear had already set in. Even after the outcome, Javier was never able to face a delivery in the same way again. The simple ringing of the intercom at night was enough to make his heart race. He became an activist for digital and urban security, giving interviews and participating in debates about the hidden risks in the seemingly harmless routine of big cities. The wrong order case has become a symbol of everyday danger and vulnerability to predators who use the guise of delivery men to infiltrate the lives of ordinary people. For urban dwellers, the warning is, the front door of your home should always be the first barrier. Never allow a stranger to cross it, even if they bring something as banal as a meal. Hey guys, the stories of delivery men and sinister deliveries are still chilling, aren't they? If you're enjoying these suspenseful stories, take a quick break, subscribe to the channel, and leave a like. This really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep bringing you more chilling content. Now, let's get back to the next stories. There's still a lot of tension ahead. 4. The Tracker. The routine of residents of the Ashcroft Gardens building in Manchester began to change when small boxes of electronics began arriving without warning. Tablets, smart speakers, security cameras, all from well-known brands, but without an invoice or identification of the sender. Most of the recipients had never ordered them, but faced with the surprise, many accepted the gifts, believing they were prize draws or mysterious promotions. Samantha Lewis, a 34-year-old college professor, received a smart speaker on a Tuesday morning. The delivery man, a thin man with a dark beard and a fixed gaze, simply smiled and asked her to sign a generic receipt. "Company gift, enjoy," he said before disappearing down the hallway. In the days that followed, other residents reported similar deliveries, always by the same man, always with the same blank smile. Curious and suspicious, Samantha decided to install the device only in the living room, but soon noticed that the device would turn on by itself during the night, making strange noises and flashing lights that were not indicated in the manual. Other neighbors reported similar situations: security cameras that would turn on by themselves, tablets that would turn on at random times, smart speakers that would record conversations without command. The atmosphere of unrest increased when one of the residents, computer technician Mark Evans, decided to dismantle the smart speaker he had received. Inside, he found a micro-tracker and a clandestine data transmission chip connecting the device to an unknown Wi-Fi network. Mark alerted the group of residents and posted a notice on the building's forum. "Do not turn on the delivered electronics. There are hidden trackers." The news spread quickly. An alarmed Samantha noticed that the delivery man had returned to the building that afternoon, discreetly checking the mailboxes and writing something on a pad. When he realized he was being watched, he hurriedly left, leaving behind a box addressed to the apartment of an elderly woman who lived alone. Mark took the devices to a friend who was an expert in digital security, who confirmed that they all contained microphones and GPS trackers, as well as software capable of remotely accessing home networks and recording audio and video. The police were called, but with no immediate evidence of a crime, they recommended caution and evidence collection. The following night, Samantha noticed a white car parked in front of the building. The delivery man was behind the wheel, looking up at the upper floors through binoculars. She took a picture of the scene and shared it with Mark, who, along with other residents, decided to organize a night watch. They discovered that the car was driving between buildings in the neighborhood, always after delivering new electronics. Fear turned to panic when a ground-floor resident, Emily, went missing. The last message on her cell phone was a message to her boyfriend. "I think someone is watching me. The delivery guy is here again." Police, now involved, reviewed street camera footage and identified the delivery man as Paul Harris, a former security technician who had been fired for suspicious conduct. Harris had set up a clandestine surveillance network using deliveries to map residents' routines, vulnerabilities, and schedules. In Harris's apartment, police found dozens of identical devices, detailed maps of buildings, and lists of names, times, and habits of hundreds of victims. It was discovered that he was selling access to the images and audio captured on underground voyeurism forums and to criminals interested in break-ins and extortion. Emily was found held captive in a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, along with personal items belonging to other victims. The case gained national attention, leading delivery companies and electronics manufacturers to review security and traceability protocols. Sales platforms began to require strict identification of senders and recipients, and the police created warning campaigns about the risk of accepting unsolicited products. Traumatized, Samantha moved out of the building and spent months in therapy. Mark became a leader in digital security, giving talks and consulting services to condominiums and companies. The Ashcroft Gardens building installed enhanced surveillance systems and prohibited unauthorized deliveries. The tracker case has become a symbol of modern terror. The predator who, under the guise of a delivery man, uses technology to invade homes, monitor routines, and choose victims. For urban dwellers, it was a warning. Not every gift is harmless, and in a connected world, danger can be hidden inside the home itself, watching and waiting for the right moment to act. and Van Brancken, Liverpool's Wavertree neighbourhood. The streets were quiet, lined with terraced houses, children playing outside, and neighbours who knew each other by name. As winter approached, the routine seemed to be unchanged until something unsettling began to emerge. A white delivery van began to drive slowly through the neighbourhood, driven by a man in a clean uniform and a low-cut cap, his face partially hidden. There was no logo on the van and no sign of scheduled deliveries to most of the homes. The vehicle drove slowly, stopping at corners, watching. The children were the first to notice. "He keeps looking at us, but he never delivers anything," Ellie, 10, told her mother, who initially thought it was her imagination. But other parents heard similar stories. The van driver, always polite when approached by adults, said he was looking for the right address or making special deliveries for a new company. Over time, residents noticed that the van would drive at unusual times, including at night, and was never seen unloading boxes. Concerns grew when Jamie, Turner, 14, failed to return home after playing soccer with friends at the local park. The last time he was seen, Jamie was walking alone toward home, backpack on, listening to music on his headphones. Security cameras at a store captured the white van slowing down next to the teenager. Within seconds, Jamie was out of sight. The disappearance mobilized the community. Searches were organized, posters were put up, and WhatsApp groups were created to share information. The police heard reports from children and teenagers who had been approached by the van driver. Ben, 13, said that the man offered them sweets and asked for help unloading packages, insisting that he come closer. Ben refused, but was frightened by the driver's fixed gaze and the way he insisted. Other young people reported similar situations, always with the same pattern: subtle approach, friendly conversation, invitation to get closer to the vehicle. The police investigation cross-referenced vehicle registrations and delivery companies, but found no matches. The van was not officially registered, and the driver seemed to know the neighborhood's schedules and routines. Neighbors began taking turns, picking up the children from school and the park, and any unfamiliar vehicle became a cause for immediate alert. The following week, another teenager, Sophie, reported to her mother that the white van had followed her for 2 blocks as she walked home from the library. Her concerned mother called the police, who stepped up patrols. One night, a group of parents decided to discreetly follow the van. They saw the driver pull over on a deserted street, peer through binoculars at houses, and jot down a note in a notebook before driving off. Pressure from the community and coverage of the case in the local press led the police to install additional cameras and set up roadblocks at strategic points in the neighborhood. Days later, the van was found parked on a secluded street on the outskirts of the city. The driver, Stephen Collins, 47, was stopped and detained. Inside the van, the police found duct tape, gloves, ropes, delivery uniforms from a defunct company, and a list of names and addresses of children and teenagers in the neighborhood, as well as dozens of photos taken from a distance. A search of Collins' home revealed a soundproofed basement, personal items belonging to children who had gone missing over the past 2 years, and detailed records of the routines, schedules, and habits of families in the area. Collins confessed to kidnapping Jamie and 3 other victims, all of whom were found dead in nearby rural areas. He used the disguise of a delivery man to move around freely, observe, approach, and select his victims without arousing suspicion. The case shocked Liverpool and gained national attention, leading schools and neighborhood associations to reinforce safety guidelines for children and teenagers. Delivery companies began to require strict identification of drivers and vehicles, and the police launched awareness campaigns about the risk of interacting with strangers, even in uniform. The Wavertree community was never the same again. Parents began to walk their children to school and the park, and any unfamiliar vehicle was immediately reported. The collective trauma was reflected in regular meetings, watchdog groups, and a constant sense of alert. Jamie became a symbol of a tragedy that could have been prevented, and his family campaigned for better security and policing in residential neighborhoods. The white van case became a national reference for the danger hidden beneath the appearance of normality and urban efficiency. For families and residents of large cities, it was a warning. Not every uniform inspires trust, and the most innocent routine can hide deadly intentions. The predator may be disguised as a delivery man, just waiting for the right moment to turn routine into tragedy. And often, danger moves slowly in plain sight, without arousing suspicion until it is too late. The recurring request. The Van Dyke family, made up of Eric, Marie, and their teenage daughter Sophie, lived a quiet life in a residential neighborhood in Antwerp. Eric, an engineer, and Marie, a teacher, were used to the steady stream of online deliveries, but they were surprised when, on a grey Monday, they received a small box addressed to the family with no return address. Inside was a cheap keychain and an old photo of an unknown child. At first they thought it was a mistake, but the following week another box arrived, this time a handkerchief embroidered with different initials and a blank note. The delivery man, always the same short man with a grey beard and an evasive look, did not wear a well-known company uniform and never asked for a signature. He would simply leave the box at the gate and quickly disappear, pedaling his old bicycle. The situation repeated itself for 6 weeks. Each box contained personal items, an earring, a library card, a scribbled-on notebook, a child's bracelet, all used and of no commercial value. The atmosphere at home grew tense. Sophie began to have nightmares, convinced that they were being watched. Marie, suspicious, tried to approach the delivery man, but he always avoided contact, speeding up his bike and disappearing into the neighborhood streets. Eric decided to investigate. He installed a discreet camera at the entrance and managed to record the delivery man, who always looked around before leaving the box. When analyzing the footage, he noticed that the man made a specific gesture with his hand when depositing the package, as if he was signaling to someone in the distance. Marie took one of the objects to the police, but no crime was apparent. She was only told to be vigilant. Tensions escalated when Sophie found a photo of a frightened woman behind bars in one of the boxes, along with a handwritten note with contact information. The family decided to investigate on their own. By searching the objects for names and initials, they discovered that several people pictured or mentioned in the boxes were missing, according to police records and online search groups. Armed with the evidence, they went back to the police, who eventually opened a formal investigation. It turned out that other families in the town had received similar packages, each time delivered by the same man. The police began monitoring the deliveries and, after weeks of surveillance, tracked the delivery man to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. At the scene, they found more than 100 identical boxes, address lists and catalogued personal belongings. The delivery man, identified as Willem Smeets, was a former employee of a logistics company and had been working as a courier for an international human trafficking ring for years. The boxes served as signposts for accomplices. Each object, photo, or coded gesture indicated the status of the victims, safe routes, guarded houses, or possible targets for kidnapping. The investigation revealed that the network used fake deliveries to map neighborhoods, test family reactions, and send secret messages between members. In some cases, the boxes were used to intimidate witnesses or mark residences of interest for future crimes. Willem confessed that he was paid to follow routes and deliver packages at specific times and in specific sequences, without ever questioning the contents. The case shocked Antwerp and gained international attention. Human rights organizations denounced the use of delivery systems as a front for serious crimes. The police dismantled part of the network, freeing victims held captive and recovering hundreds of personal belongings from missing people. The Van Dyke family, deeply shaken, moved to another neighborhood and spent months in therapy. Sophie developed anxiety and fear of going out alone. Eric and Marie became community safety activists and helped raise awareness about human trafficking and warning signs. The recurring request case has become a symbol of the danger hidden in banal, everyday gestures. For families around the world, it has become a warning. Not every delivery is innocent, and seemingly harmless objects can be part of a dark code used by predators to map, mark, and manipulate victims. In an age of connectivity and convenience, surveillance can come disguised as routine, and often the terror begins with a simple box left on the doorstep. The impact of the case led to changes in delivery protocols throughout Belgium. Logistics. Companies began to require strict identification of senders and recipients, and the police launched educational campaigns in schools and residential neighborhoods. The story of the Van Dyke family was featured in newspapers and documentaries, inspiring other victims to report similar situations and strengthening the support network for families of missing people. With each new delivery, the memory of fear lingers: the box on the doorstep, the silent delivery man, the quick gesture to the street. For the Van Dykes, the lesson was bitter but necessary. Today, they warn, routine can be the gateway to danger, and vigilance can be where you least expect it, even in a simple package left on the front porch. Final delivery. Tom Harris, 45, was one of Expressway's most experienced delivery drivers. Having been on the streets of London for more than 2 decades, he knew every back alley in Camden, every regular customer, every shortcut through traffic. He had earned the respect of his colleagues for his punctuality, professionalism, and, most importantly, his concern for his own safety. But that fall, Tom began to notice a disturbing pattern. Colleagues were disappearing without a trace, and they all had one thing in common. The last recorded delivery was always to the same address, 17 Ashmore Road. At first, Tom thought it was a coincidence. London was a big city and disappearances happened, but the frequency of the disappearances increased. First, it was Ahmed, a newcomer who had mentioned a strange customer, then Lisa, who reported on the radio that the house looked abandoned, but someone was watching through the curtains. Within a few weeks, 2 more delivery men had disappeared, all after taking orders for this Victorian house with its dark facade, shuttered windows, and rusty gate. Tom began investigating on his own. He spoke to colleagues, reviewed delivery records, and analyzed messages in WhatsApp groups. He discovered that the reports were always similar, orders placed by customers under different names, but always to number 17. The resident was never seen, only a deep voice over the intercom. Some delivery people reported feeling watched, others mentioned an oppressive atmosphere, as if something was warning them not to proceed. Determined to find out the truth, Tom accepted a delivery to the suspicious address one rainy night. Before he left, he warned his wife and supervisor, asked them to monitor his GPS, and promised to send him messages at every step. When he reached Ashmore Road, he felt a chill. The street was deserted, the house shrouded in fog, no lights on. He rang the doorbell and waited. The door opened slowly, revealing a tall, thin man with an icy stare and a sinister smile. "You're here to deliver, aren't you?" he said, inviting Tom inside. Before he could refuse, the door slammed shut behind him with a bang. The inside of the house was even more disturbing. The hallway was lined with deliverymen's uniforms, hanging like trophies, badges, backpacks, and personal items carefully arranged in glass cases. Victor Crane, the resident, explained in a calm, almost proud voice that he used the house as a trap, luring deliverymen with false orders, murdering them and collecting their uniforms. Each piece represented a victim, a macabre ritual of control and power. He liked to talk to his victims before killing them, listening to their stories like someone collecting memories. Tom noticed that at the back of the room there was an entire wall covered with photos of deliverymen, dates, and obsessive notes about each one. Tom tried to remain calm, using his experience to observe details: a partially unlocked window, an iron bar lying next to a box, a side door ajar. While Victor was distracted by telling him about his hunts, Tom managed with slow movements to free himself from his improvised restraints. He hit the killer with the iron bar and ran through the dark corridors. He found the side door, locked, but in desperation, he broke it down and fled into the street, wounded but alive. At the police station, Tom recounted everything in detail. The police, initially skeptical, went to the house and found the horror scene described: dozens of uniforms, badges, backpacks, and detailed records of each victim. Victor Crane had operated for years, luring delivery men to his isolated home, hand-picking them, planning each crime as a ritual. The investigation also uncovered records of false orders made in different names, always to the same address, and evidence of unsolved crimes in other London neighbourhoods. The case shocked the city and led to a review of safety protocols for delivery drivers. Companies began monitoring deliveries to risky addresses, requiring double confirmation and real-time tracking. Tom became a symbol of courage and survival, participating in campaigns to warn urban workers about the hidden dangers. In the seemingly safe routine of delivery, the trauma left deep scars on Tom. He spent months in therapy, dealing with insomnia and anxiety. His story was featured in newspapers and documentaries, inspiring changes in delivery apps and support networks for workers. Today, Tom warns, never ignore your instincts. If an address seems suspicious, tell someone, ask for help. Trust your fear. Sometimes it is your fear that saves your life. For delivery men and urban workers, here's a warning. Not every delivery is just a package to be delivered. Sometimes the door you knock on can be the entrance to a real nightmare, where danger lurks behind hanging uniforms and cold smiles. In big cities, the predator may be waiting for you in the very house that everyone avoids, but which, for those who make their living from delivery, is just another address on the long list of daily visits. And so, we come to the end of our 7 horror stories involving delivery men and sinister deliveries. So which one scared you the most? Will any of them make you think twice before opening the door to a delivery? Tell us in the comments which was your favorite. If you enjoyed this dive into the darker side of everyday deliveries, don't forget to leave a like. This really helps the channel grow and encourages me to bring you more spine-chilling stories. And if you're not a subscriber yet, take advantage now to subscribe and activate the bell.